our first conversation today here at this fine art institution with its new president, who is the first African American president of the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. It is my pleasure and my privilege to welcome to this table and to this airwave Mr. Eric Pryor. May I call you Eric, sir?
Please do.
It is a pleasure to have you, sir. I want you to know from the very beginning that I am jealous of what you do and the role that you play. Please tell me how a man goes from having a basketball scholarship to becoming not only a patron of the arts, not only a person who is an artist, but an administrator of the arts as well.
Well, for me, it started at home. My mother, Dale Pryor, ran a gallery in Detroit up until she was 93 years old. She really just before COVID. And so it starts there at the roots. You know, most kids, they get arts in three places, either home, in their school, or in the community. For me, it was at home and in the Detroit public schools. So the root started there. And then later on, when I was a basketball player, my best friend in Detroit, his dad was an artist, Al Loving, in New York, and he turned me on to the art world. And the people there were incredible, and I wanted to be around them and work in that space.
I grew up here in the city of Philadelphia, Eric, and passing the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts is something that I did with great regularity without giving it a thought, because as an African-American man, typically you feel that art is a luxury that you deal with only after all the bills are paid and everything that you ever wanted to do has been done. How can we get people to understand that art as a transformative agent is something that we need to consider as a crucial part of a healthy life?
Well, I think ultimately, if we think about terms that people use in the business sector, when they talk about, creating a new business, they talk about visionaries or disruptors. Well, the first space where you learn to be a visionary is ultimately in the arts. It's a place where you can think about solutions and problem solving. We call them the 4 C's, critical thinking, creative problem solving, becoming a master communicator, and learning to work collaboratively. Those are skill sets that you learn engaging in the arts. And if you think about those are transferable, and they can take you into any space in terms of, especially for children or people who are developing their skills, any space, they're transferable.
Eric, I'm going to ask you to repeat those 4 C's again, because I'm going to make them a part of my lexicon, and then I'm going to act like I've been saying it all my life. If you would do that one more time for me.
Okay. Critical thinking, creative problem solving, mastering communication, which you obviously have already done. and
fooled another one, ladies and gentlemen, fooled another one.
And working collaboratively.
And working collaboratively. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Speaking of communicating, working collaboratively, before you came to us, you spent some time at the storied Harlem School of the Arts.
Yes, I did.
Where there's a lot of collaboration, but you are immersed now in one of the centers of African American culture. How did the Harlem School of the Arts interface with that community, and how might you compare it to PAFA and the community that is here in Philadelphia?
Well, it all starts with being in proximity with the people you want to serve. And, it being at Harlem School of the Arts, we were directly in the community. We worked directly with the families. We interfaced with the parents. We, talked to our kids, talked to the young people who were there, and made certain we understood what their needs were. And so when I look at the work we need to do here, the work we do here at PAFA, it starts the same way. It really is about being in proximity. So for me, getting to know other leaders, going out in the community, meeting people, and understanding what they feel the arts can do for them, and then me having an understanding of the types of programs we have that we can take in the community and where the right fits are.
As I was preparing for this broadcast today and going over your biography and the biography of others that I'll be speaking to momentarily, I literally began to become a little bit nostalgic and sad by the fact that I wanted to be where you are.
Okay.
When I was younger, I wanted to be an art student. In fact, I studied at the Flasher Art School where you once taught.
Yeah.
But somehow or another, somebody convinced me that art wasn't what brothers in the hood did.
Okay.
Go back and talk to the young man that I was, and help me to understand the different avenues that can be pursued as a young man, especially a young man of color, when it comes to the field of art.
Well, one of the things I just say in the arts is, one, You have to be a leader. You have to follow your own voice. Ultimately, you got to be authentic and be true to your authenticity, and recognize that, setting your path, it's really not about what somebody else says. Because trust me, when I was playing ball, everybody, you gonna stop playing ball? For me, it was clear to me my life wasn't going to be I wasn't going to be in the NBA. I wasn't going to just be out on the playground playing ball the rest of my life. And I saw a pathway. I saw a pathway that felt real for me. I saw a pathway that spoke to me, so I followed it. And so you really got to follow your instincts. You got to follow your gut and have courage to do what it is that speaks to you.
For those of you who are just joining in, we are broadcasting live from the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, located at Broad and Cherry, right in the heart of downtown Philadelphia. We are in the beautiful auditorium, the Rhoden Auditorium, that's on the lower level of the Academy of the Fine Arts. I have to tell you, folks, if you've never been here, take the time to spend a day checking out the exhibits and just the environs themselves. You will feel creative just walking in. I have the privilege now to be speaking to the new president of the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, Eric Pryor. You are a painter by training.
Yes.
And I heard you mention that is something that you wanted to go back to, the actual employing of your skills in art. But you had made you had mentioned the difference between visual arts and performing arts.
Yeah.
And that there was one that you said you wanted to get back to, which was the visual arts over the performing. Can you give us the line that delineates between the two and how they might differ?
Well, the performing arts, most of us interface with the performing arts because it's much more in our popular culture. Okay. When we watch television, movies, or we go to the theater, or we listen to music, or we see dance on videos. So most people with the performing arts, it's the interface within their own lives. It happens, constantly. Even just on the radio dial, you're gonna hear music. Whereas the visual arts, at least fine art, visual art, typically you're going into a gallery, you're going into a museum. So many times the interface, the places where you might intersect with the arts in that space, are spaces that one has to really make a little bit more of an effort to get to in that sense. It's not as connected to popular culture as the other art forms may be. But there are areas of visual art that you'd see that are considered like graphic arts and commercial arts, website design, those type of things. But when you start talking about fine arts, it's really those spaces, unless you're talking about public art, of course. And then in that instance, you might just see a sculpture like the big clothespin in downtown Philadelphia. People just see that just if you're hanging out in Center City, I should say, excuse me.
Yeah, I remember when they installed the clothespin and they said, art. And then I said, my mom's been an artist for years. She's been using those things ever since she's been washing my dirty underwear. But, hey, there it goes.
But she didn't make it, 40 feet tall?
She did not make it 40 feet tall.
All right.
I will readily get to that. Yeah. When we talk about art, and this is something that often throws people off a little bit as to who actually defines art. For example, I was watching an exhibit one time, and the exhibit was a shovel that had been broken that was hanging from a string.
Yeah.
And I realized I'd missed my calling because I'd broken a few shovels in my day. Who gets to define art for us, and how does one decide what has artistic value?
Well, I think that's really personal. In terms of it having value or you're appreciating it, it's what you appreciate. And a good friend of mine once said, such and such is not an artist. Because the person didn't appreciate the quality of the person's art. And I said, well, I sing all the time, but I sing terribly, but you can't say I'm not singing. So ultimately, we all can make art. Doesn't mean your art is going to be quality, doesn't mean it's going to hang in a museum. But in terms of, if you want to look at that ranking, it's individual taste. I look at it and feel like when you listen to music, what makes your foot pat. What makes you snap your fingers. So it's very personal. So I don't think it's a thing where there is that person who's the expert, and if they say it's art, then it's art.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit more about the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. This is a historical institution, a historic institution, rather, I should say it that way. First in the nation. But for years, I think it would not be debated that there was a level of disconnect between this institution and the African-American community. I remember not long ago there was some concerns about the way that this institution was viewing Black Lives Matter movement. And now we are noticing that there is the first female who serves as the Board of Trustees chair, president of the Board of Trustees, and now the first African American.
Yep.
Are we seeing an intentional move on the part of the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts to intentionally reach out to communities of color in the city of Philadelphia?
I think what we have to look at is, and I always tell people, when we look at institutions are only as good as the leadership and the people who are heading them up. I think there have been moments when probably past missteps have happened, and ultimately it's unfortunate that the leadership who was there made those missteps. But I know the board chair and the board now, they really looked at and learned from the past and said, hey, we want to create a process that brought in the best candidate. In this instance, the best candidate happened to be an African-American man. And so, so it was intentional. But the intentionality really was set up based on the process and creating a process that brought voices to the table, that made certain, and those voices, they spoke and the leadership listened. So they had faculty as part of the process. They had mid-level staff as part of the process. They had students as part of the process, and, of course, board members. So when you bring all those different constituent groups, it's very possible you're going to get a candidate that may not look the same as you had, year after year after year.
When we talk about art, and one of the words used in the mission of Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts is the word transformation, the transformative power of art. A lot of times people are very uncomfortable with transforming because people like sameness. They like to do what they did yesterday. Talk to me more about how art has been used in transforming culture, transforming community, and how PAFA will be trying to use art as a transformative element in bringing this community, evolving this community forward.
Well, I mean, it can happen in a couple of ways. I mean, one, it can happen in just discussing a work of art, and through that discourse, it may shape opinions and how people see things. But the other thing is, when you look at creative practice, one of the things you realize in making art, that there is no right or wrong way necessary, a way to do it. If I'm trying to create something, it may be 40 different ways or paths I can take. It's not necessarily a right answer. And so when you look at that, you realize that the options are endless, and that the creative process is one that helps you understand that. For example, I'll give you a quick example. When I was working in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and I was working in a youth program, was a young man who was he was in gangs, and we were talking, and he was like, Pryor, this is my reality, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, my reality is my paint is in the tube and the canvas is blank. So if I just stayed on reality, it wouldn't go anywhere. So things you can change your reality. You can change your moment. And I think that's the power of art, is that you're constantly in a position to, create product or create a creative work of art or a painting or sculpture. And it's out of your mind's eye in a way. So you're creating a new reality. It may have been a log at this point, but once you start sculpting it, you may make it into a person. You may make it into, a flower.
The ability to envision that which is not.
Correct.
To take what is and say, I want it to be this, and I have the power and the ability to change it.
Correct.
Some people say that is the spark of the divine within us. It allows us to not be stuck with the circumstances that exist. I'm going to be speaking to some of the other members of your staff and at least one of your students, and looking at some of their works. I find myself wanting to dig deep in my wallet and to add a little bit more art to my walls. Do you have any of your work that is available? I mean, do you ever exhibit the work of one Eric Pryor?
I have actually. I was fortunate enough to win a public art project. So I have 29 faceted glass windows that are hanging at a train station in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. You can't purchase them; they're permanent there now. But I have work up. And we have a staff show that I'm going to submit a piece to. It's juried by students.
Really?
But I'm going to make sure my name is not on it, because I don't want them to let the work in because of my position. It needs to make it in because it's at the quality, it's at the level, hopefully, that they'll select it to be part of the show.
I'm looking forward to it. I've already seen some art that was produced by some of the others who will be joining us today. And I'm going to do my level best to see if I can at least get a print from one or two of them. Last but not least, as we move forward and as PAFA continues, and as I said, I'm getting my membership today. My understanding is that the membership is only $25 per year.
Hey, brother, you're getting it today, right?
I'm getting it today.
Okay, yes.
$25. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking 2 hoagies. That's it. I mean, 2 hoagies. I mean, $25, and you can be. I mean, just like that, you can find yourself as a supporter of the arts, and you have to raise your pinky finger when you say it. A supporter of the arts, and I plan to do that. I must tell you how grateful I am, first of all, to be a part of this family here at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, but more importantly, there's a level of pride that I feel knowing that you are the president of this institution. Let's give them a hard sell for those who are listening who have never been here, some people who did not even know that it was here. Let's give them a hard sell, and let's invite them to come down and to be a part of the glory of this institution and to take in the wonders, the artistic wonders that exist here.
Well, I definitely say, come down to PAFA, as we like to call it. And, I mean, we have an amazing art collection from Tanner to Kehinde Wiley. It's just so many works of art that people enjoy that will incite their imagination. In the Furness building, which is our historic landmark building, is really one of the first buildings in terms of modern architecture. It's an incredible space. So it's a wonderful experience, and it'll make you think. And then when you leave, you can go have your hoagie around the corner. You can go over to the Parkway and enjoy other museums. It's just it's a full day or weekend, experience that one could have.
Finally, sir, I can't let you leave without asking you, what 3 things would you like to do this
spring? Oh, God. What 3 things would I like to do? Well, number one is I'd love this spring to go see a playoff game between the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, that'd be fun. That's going to happen this spring. That's one. That's one.
Well, listen, for a moment of prayer, please let it be. Okay, all right.
Because I think that'd be some high drama there. Other than that, I'd love to go down to the Penn's Landing to check out some live music and just, my wife, who's a Philly girl, we're just moving and getting a place down on the Delaware River and take a little walk with her along the river.
You listen to some people talking, you say, what happened to my life? Ladies and gentlemen, please, a warm round of applause for the president of the Philadelphia Academy of the Fine Arts.
Thank you.
Mr. Eric Pryor. Eric, it is
Nick,
a real pleasure. Glad to be a part of the family, and thank you for spending a little time with us and introducing us.
Nick,
to
thank
PAFA.
you. Thank you for being here.
The pleasure is mine, sir. Absolutely mine.